we're going to get back into doing the background of all the trees and trying to make it more of that, using darker, kind of lighter as we go in toward the center, so less brushwork. And I've got some pencil strokes that you can kind of see through here, but I'm going to be making a lot of it up. All right, and same kind of thing like I mentioned before. I'll work a little bit on the left and then switch over to the right. Try and loosen up, do some work here. What I'm doing here is just working this long brush because it can hold more ink as I work. I might fill in a few areas here. Got a few last leaves that are still gripping onto the trees a little bit. But a lot of this work in the background I was thinking would just be lots of branches, and like the leaves have all since fallen on the ground. And some of that work too, if it's just a slender branch that's just completely black, I can either go over that with my line work in the background, or leave gaps where it goes over. Maybe I've got some tree work there, scabs of the tree and the bark. Try and identify some areas that go completely black in the darkness, so that your eyes have that ability to rest on areas that are completely black. And I'm going to fill in stuff here that I see with my eye, making use of all those pencil lines I did back at the beginning. Maybe a few things trail down, kind of pointing to our main characters in the figure. That way, when the viewer's eyes go up into the tree branches, something can help you guide your eyes back down toward the figures, creating that circular view. Our eyes will go here to the figures. We can go out, look at the tree work and things, and kind of bring it back into this focal point of the two guys. A few times you might see I'll stick my pinky out here and rest it on the page when I'm working up at an angle like this, so that I wanted to try and do it so that not only the cameras get a good shot of it, but it just gives me good looks where I can stand back or sit back and look at it up on a wall type surface. I've seen people saw a quick painter the other day online that he liked to have a mirror back behind him, and so as he's working he would turn and look back in the mirror and see that is painting more of it at a distance, which is a great way not only to reverse the direction. As you look in a mirror, it flips the direction. It lets you check balance, but also see it at a distance. And that was a neat idea. It made me think about it, and then I'm going to try that sometime. Here I'm showing some work on that tree branch, trying to get it in there. I see a little pencil line I kind of did there earlier, so I'm going to turn that into a tree branch arcing into back here somewhere. It's okay for these things with trees. If you look at them, the branches can angle all sorts of ways. Only thing they don't do is do any kind of just easy pattern. No easy patterns with trees. Now I'm going to do some shading along this trunk. Line work there. With the idea that I think back here, put in a few things, but I want areas of that to go completely black. And I can do that with a bigger brush. And that's a good way too to clean up areas. So what I might do is go in with my light brush now and just kind of play around, do all sorts of things, and then come back in with that big brush to fill in areas and look for detail at that time. If you look up in the dictionary, a neat word is pleach. Have you heard of that term? P-L-E-A-C-H. Pleach is looking up, is the intertwining of branches overhead, I think is the definition as I heard it. So getting that in there. I'm going to go in here now that I'm kind of feeling more comfortable again with some of my brushwork and things. I'm going to put some more lines down in here where the branches come together. Maybe make a few hints at triangular shapes in there where there's a series of branches coming around, but the eye kind of has those at a distance and can't really, just like I was talking about before with the hair of our figures. That going into the distance here. Because before I did all this work back into the trees and around the figures with just a pen, and the brush allows you to get more body on your brush work. Try and keep it light. Make sure these figures don't get drowned out by the heavier ink work. loose work trying to work and fill that area in. Then as I look back and see, maybe I see, oh, maybe this area is a little more of a patch, that there's more of a dark tree silhouette there with another next to it, as I build that dark line work further back as it gets toward these trees. And whereas the ones in the foreground up around the sides are going to be a lot more defined, that allows me to kind of blend how I might be viewing these trees versus the ones in the background. And so as we come in, I can kind of blend in more detail to less detail toward the back. These are my thought processes as I go through. Normally I don't talk out loud as I'm working. I'll work in either silence or a little bit of music. Now, something as I noticed here, I'd like a little more black on the crease of some of his shirt to help there be some good contrast and have kind of him stand out here as opposed to some of the other parts on him. There we go. There, gives him a little more definition on his collar. Maybe a little more shading right there to in that line work by his strap around his knuckles, that it's going to be a lot darker in that area. There we go. Gives him more definition. There we go. Now his partner, same thing. If you're wondering why I don't just say what characters might be thinking, maybe you've read similar books to what I have. This is a story that could go back in a number of different settings. And the idea being, I want you guys to come up with whatever setting you think these two guys are from. Maybe along his temple there, a little bit of that work. Okay, so you see us going in here, Putting more of this ink work down. Filling in different areas of it. Just letting the relaxing tone of this painting ink work take shape. And yes, there is a bunch of brushwork. And I'm making this up as I go along. Some of my other art, you'll notice that not afraid of doing a lot of line work. Or too much to a fault. So that so much so that I can actually go in after and some of these lines I made, totally take them out. Cover them up in black because I decided at a later time to get rid of them, give some more negative space for the eye to rest. So right now, now that I feel relaxed in what I'm doing, I'm gonna start jumping all over, finding some of these lines, these pencil lines I put in, and start brushing them in for tree work. So that I can come back through with a bigger ink pen and brush them up. Trees will have all sorts of knobby twists and turns. If anything, I'm making this a lot more homogeneous than a actual forest might have, where you might have a lot more branches coming back on themselves, circling back. But I decided, rather than make a big jumble mess, I'm trying to make it kind of guide eyes back to the figures. So I'm not really trying to make a bunch of crisscross like you might see if you looked underneath a tree straight up in the air. One outdoors, you actually tried to put in every single branch on a tree, you'd be painting a long, long time. Shows what a wonderful creation and mystery trees are. These strokes, you notice when doing trees or any kind of line work, a good steady one will be to put your brush on the page and draw it along this direction. You're not going to push it, you're letting the ink flow right off the tip of your brush and create that line. But sometimes if I'm just starting to kind of want a little bit of detail or blocking an area, I'll do a side-to-side swish. That'll make some people cringe. They're like, what are you doing? Well, if I do a short stroke like that with a side, you're actually still dragging it along the tassel. But if I'm running low on ink, or I sense that it's starting to get less ink on the page, I will just kind of scrub it in real quick like that. Just a quick side wheel, because my main mind is filling in things as I go. Yep, filling it in, looking for differences on how these trees might come together. Having fun. Fun. This area of the tree might be back from the path, have a little bit choppy shading on that branch in the background. That area just above it I left white, that'll be all black later. Some of the areas up here, same thing. I predict large areas of black. You can kind of see how I might be filling in stuff. Might be kind of making sure because like some of these areas, I was like, you might see it say, whoa, that's too fat for a branch. Well, yeah, but one edge could be the light side of the branch and the other edge I'm going to fill in with black. So I'm looking more at the areas of light that I'm leaving behind, much more so than the areas of black that I'm creating. Does that make sense? If I have a knot somewhere, it's going to be different than having a series of hash marks with tree and then coming in with complete black on spots. Both sides. Like this area here that I left and mentioned earlier that it was going to go black. There it went. All gone. And then the area here, that's the back side of this tree. Do a little bit of line shading there. Come down in a series right next to it. Work between the branches of the things that I kind of see in the front in front of it. Work down into the existing pen work that I did before I did all this preliminary work. Adds into the drama and the contrast that I'm trying to do. So I'm going to start filling in even more of this area because I can see from your view. I don't want you to think that I'm just totally making all this up in the middle. There are some pencil lines in here. And it doesn't take much for me to see a pencil line and say, oh, that's kind of a branch, and then I fill in a few areas heading from it. Some of the pencil lines are just a curve so much that probably not going to use them. Again, I'm holding my pinky out there, trying to get things relaxed, but steadying my hand when I do all these little lines. And balancing out the different areas, bringing in a few from overhead. Remember, I want stuff to come down pointing at the guys. You can just be outright, I'm pointing at you. I'm going to point down there. I'm not going to give the choice for the viewer. I want them looking back down there. Sure, they might like trees, they might like the chaos of what's above in the canopy, but I'm going to have them looking back at the guys. Oop, bumped the camera there. So, looking better. Some of these things, if I give a little bit darker around, it might help that figure stand out even more. That help. And as you practice and play around with stuff, you'll get better, and you'll find out what things you like and what things you don't like. And that's the big point of a lot of artists, and getting better and better, not with just, hey, this looks better to other people, but better to yourself. One of the great artists that maybe didn't even find success in their lifetime, like Cezanne or Van Gogh, are found to repeatedly say, I draw what I like, or I paint what I like. And you can see, though, from their early works to their late works, they were still trying to figure that out. They were trying to really perfect what they wanted to see. Or they found over time better ways of creating and doing what they wanted to see. And that's what really kind of drives us all. Like even myself, I've had people comment, oh, that's neat, how'd you do that stuff? And whereas other very talented illustrators who've been doing it as a career their whole lives, I've had the fortunate to talk to some of them, do a portfolio review, and they gave me great insight into just the strategies of what they do when they're working on a piece of art, and the struggles that they have, and some ideas, not that they say, hey, do it this way, but do it differently. So like one of artists, mentors that I enjoy, he mentioned looking at it, oh, Tom, this is good on your artwork as far as the ink work and stuff. He hadn't seen it, he'd only seen my paintings. And he had mentioned that about the negative space, and to develop that more and give a chance for the eyes to rest. And then he gave me some examples of some of my art and how I might do it differently next time. So not saying, hey, do this, but that's what he liked to see or recommended for a change in art. Then the same set of art I showed a different artist, and I was at a art convention, And this gentleman, he was a hard-working artist. He wasn't making his living from book sales or arts or anything like that. He actually did a circuit and did everything. He promotes everything through Patreon, YouTube channel, and stuff like that. And he really liked and gravitated. We traded paintings at a show, or traded some art. And I really liked what he did with some of his portrait work. And it was very good from a distance. You know, you're standing 10 feet away, 15 feet away or so. Your brain just knows what that is. Now, you get up real close and analyze it, because it was kind of like a fan fiction modification where he took recognizable figures and put them in different historical renditions or portraits. And so it was kind of a spoof thing that he was doing, and he knew all about copyright and trademark, stuff like that. But it wasn't that he was looking up close. He didn't have that practiced ease of a Rembrandt or anything, or, you know, he wasn't like he was at that level, but he really honed in on what he enjoyed. And he actually liked a ink brushwork I did that was of a path into a forest that I did on a camping trip one time, plein air. And he wasn't the first person, but a lot of people, instead of the path and stuff down at the bottom that I had just a brambles of rocks and things like that, he thought of it looking like a stream, and another person did too, or a couple other artists. But just all that line work and detail, he really gravitated to points like this. Just, it looks very busy, a lot of detail, a lot of ink work. That's what he likes. Whereas that first artist I mentioned to you had the suggestion, which was a good one, was yeah, that's cool, but you can get lost in that. You need to have that combination of areas of just black, negative space. And so both of those had an effect on me, and I still do both. I do both. And you can see both in this one as I do them. We're going to have the intertwining of branches here. And putting them in with light brush strokes. See, at this point, you look at it, and you're a little bit farther away than me, but I'm looking over at my monitor while I do this too, to get a better feel of what you guys are seeing. And it also gives me a way to stand back and look at a distance at the art. And you can say, man, he just filled that in with a bunch of tree branches. That looks awesome. And yeah, there are hints of tree branches, but if you get really close, and I will here at the end, I'll show you what it looks like close up, because I'm working kind of close up, closer than you guys, and watching everything. I'm going to get a little more heavy-handed on some of these areas now. This is kind of the middle where we got the fine detail, and then we're going to have these heavier branches now, combination going into the canopy, but we're still at a distance enough that it's abstract. I'm liking how it's coming out. And I'll even need to do more work here on the right side as I fill things in. And I'm trying to visually look at, okay, how many areas of dark where I'm putting in blocks of that black space are happening on the left versus the right, so that I can make sure it's kind of balanced. And it's okay, you don't have to have perfect balance. It's not like I got a check sheet out here and I'm going through, okay, how many areas of black, how many areas of dark, and things. No, I'm just using my mind, my eye, to register what I might be seeing as far as a balance to either side. So that I can start kind of seeing and feeling that amount of harmony between the two sides of the painting. And I'll probably go back and forth between calling this ink and painting and stuff. I am painting black ink in here. And it's filling it in. And this is not, as you can see, I'm planning this all out kind of brushwork, but a lot of the times if I'm doing a big project with detail, or trying to make sure I have a really good beforehand composition laid out, like maybe there's certain elements that the person wants in it that is commissioning it, or certain elements that I want in it because I'm looking at it, I'll do a lot more pencil work and plan it all out ahead of time, and then you'll actually have a much better guideline as you go. This tree is probably one of the closest ones to the viewer, so I am purposely doing a little more detail on there. Now I gotta be careful about putting my pinky down when I've been doing this in all these areas, because there is wet ink and I don't want to start making a pinky fingerprint all the way across the picture. That will show up. Keep those pinkies clean, people. Some long brush stroke in here. A few areas figured out. might notice, oh, this is a hard corner going into a certain area, and that doesn't look like branch work. Then I can add some more ink and fill it in. It's been a while since I did any leaves. I'll throw in some there. Okay. Filling in now. Everybody feeling like we're getting closer? I have a white branch going through there. I'm going to put some little bit of shading on it to give some definition of light toward the center and black toward the outside. Sometimes I'll, if I'm real close to it too, as you get older your eyes aren't as flexible, and so I'll sometimes wear reading glasses, but at this distance that I'm working, I can see it fine. You guys see it fine? All right, see all that filled in? And I kind of wonder sometimes when I look at things like this is how much of that is so filled in it creates too much monotony and it doesn't focus on our central figures. How much of that should I add additional black? If you do, you can't take it out. So you got to balance, okay, how much of this am I going to outline or detail these figures? And how often am I going to say that's good enough? Okay. Are we going to exaggerate some of the shadows on them so that they stand out even more in certain respect, certain areas? Like, to me, I think, you know, just a little bit more under his jacket here in this area will help give the rest of him more definition up above. I can get more around the base of his hand. Show that a little higher. This area right here, just give that bridge, that gap between the two, connecting the two figures a little better. There we go. Maybe more around the back of this arm. Elbow area. Some on his jacket here. Helping them stand out more. And that's one of the challenging things about just making it up versus real photo reference, is photo reference is the way to go. Many, whether you don't know it or didn't want to believe it, major artists all the way back to those in history would use reference a lot. Not because they were trying to cheat. They still incorporated a lot of their own ideas into how it looked, but it allows you to, when you're doing your project, get a reference and realize there were things that you enjoy seeing in a picture that weren't there in your mind. And so it gives you that chance to help your brain make a more beneficial recreation experience of what you want to see. Just like my rendition of what this road picture starting was going to be different from what you might have been thinking. You have now seen it as I hope that I imagined you seeing it. I've got a little different brush here. It's not a filbert. A filbert has a rounded tip to the end. It's probably one of the most common brushes. This one's got an angle to it. The biggest thing I want to be sure is, because I'm doing this and haven't been using it earlier, is I want to make sure it's not going to create a big run or bring a big piece of ink down the page that I'm not ready for. But what it'll do is help create bigger areas of color or ink that allow it to be more homogeneous and fill things in quicker. So again, I'm looking back, kind of picking out a few areas that I was originally thinking would have some darker contrast, and filling those in, like this branch back here. If I want to See, there's getting less ink on there, but I can just very gently drag that big brush down those white parts of those trees to make them just a little bit more toned. But then when I load up my brush, I can't do that again in the same fashion. It will totally blot them out. So I've got to work with ink on it till I get to a point and say, oh, my brush is starting to get out again. And then I can take it around, do some of these with a bit of and to take my fine brush and do all those strokes over that area. Ha! Think of how long that would have taken me. But I can, as they say, change the tone or the value, knock it down a little bit. And not all of them, leave some highlights. But I'm starting to make sure that things in the background are helping these guys stand out. There we go. You know what, as far as what I imagined doing an initial drawing and then inking it and stuff in front of the camera like this, it's not like this was a case where I had a second ink drawing off to the side and I'd already done it once and I was kind of just recreating and doing it quick on the fly. I wanted you guys to kind of see my process of how I might look when I'm thinking of something, kind of imagining it. And something I love about art is the more you do it and the more you put into it, it always gives you, for me, a sense of enjoyment. Not only did I complete something, but it's something that was a process that I can look at, that I can frame, that I can make prints of and enjoy over time. And that's one of the biggest, I guess, important things to me that involves in it. It's something of, you know, putting yourself out there on a page. Whoa! Putting yourself out there. And so what I'm going to do now is give you a couple close images of the ink drawing. And thanks for joining me, and hope to see you next time. Please like and subscribe. I wanted to try and do, you know, channels to try and see if other people are as interested in this as I am, but also just to give kind of a recording of my process and my journey as I might do and get involved in these. Thanks and have a great day.